In China, social unrest has broken out due to frozen deposits totaling roughly $6 billion. To put an end to the protests, thousands of police officers were sent in. Following the protests, tens of thousands of Chinese homeowners refused to make mortgage payments, totaling up to $300 billion. 301 projects in 91 cities apparently no longer receive mortgage payments. The 2008 recession is being repeated in China, but on a much greater scale. As the CCP feverishly seeks to control the escalating unease, a full-scale social uprising is emerging. Recently, over 400,000 Chinese citizens saw their bank deposits freeze. Depositors were simply refused when they attempted to withdraw cash from an ATM. People became panicked when they were unable to even withdraw their own money. A vast fraudulent scam that went on for more than 10 years led to the bank freeze. Despite repeated attempts by the CCP to control them, protests against the bank freeze have gained widespread attention on Chinese social media sites. Several significant concerns were leaked during a recent internal government property discussion. Construction on properties covering 300 million square feet have been put on hold. Local governments are at their breaking point. There are rumors that the 200 to 300 billion yuan property fund won't be sufficient. Sales of real estate are down 20%. Starts of new projects are down 30%. Recent mortgage revolts in China may be the worst of all of them. Financial regulators have developed a proposal to let citizens halt their mortgage payments since Chinese homebuyers are not making their mortgage installments. Mortgage payments are past due to the tune of 2 trillion yuan, or $300 billion. The issue with both the bank freeze and the mortgage boycott is that a domino effect is going to happen. 5 banks failed, and this would ultimately spread to 20, then 100, and finally the entire banking system. This is because the Chinese banking system is dependent on fractional reserves, much like the financial infrastructure of practically every other nation. To paint the picture, imagine someone deposited $1,000 into their account. The bank does not keep the $1,000 in the bank, and instead loans it out. In order to earn money from interest, the bank will loan out $900 while keeping $100 in reserves. The borrower of the $900 will typically spend those funds on goods and services. And the process continues like this with everybody depositing and loaning funds. The bank will become up to 10 times more leveraged as a result of this endless cycle. Because the lending is duplicated again, the phenomenon is known as the monetary multiplier effect. The money supply in the case we looked at began at $1,000 and gradually rose to $10,000. The multiplication effect alone generated $9,000 out of thin air. People will soon discover that the banks don't have the money they placed when they all attempt to withdraw their money at once. Global economists are aware that the recent social upheaval in China is a sign of the total collapse of the Chinese economy. The boycott against mortgages was not unexpected. Years of poor management culminated in a boycott after years of growing resentment. Chinese citizens were eager to buy any available property because housing costs kept rising yearly. People could not even fathom that property prices would ever drop similar to how the US crisis developed in 2008. People would save money for years solely to buy real estate. Real estate is thought to account for between 70 to 80% of Chinese family assets. Imagine putting money aside for years before you ultimately buy a single house. In Chinese culture, where younger generations would emphasize buying a property, encourage this kind of conduct. Such a massive buying spree filled the growing real estate market for decades. Property developers viewed this hunger as a chance to grow more quickly. The outcry is actually fairly unexpected because historically, Chinese citizens have paid off the majority of the mortgages. Additionally, banks have a legal right to request and receive full payment. The government has allowed residents to temporarily halt their payments despite cultural customs and the fact that it's prohibited. The mortgage interest rate has also been reduced numerous times in China this year alone. The government lowered the prime rate for 5-year loans from 4.6% to 4.45% in May 2020. Additionally, the CCP has lifted limits on lending to real estate developers. A similar action would be to increase money printing to combat inflation. When lending limitations are lifted, developers will just lend additional money to pay off earlier loans. With this management style, it's reasonable to say that the unfinished properties will never reach their completion. Jeep is owned by the automaker Centralis, whose CEO described how they have noticed an increase in political meddling in China's corporate world over the past 5 years. Volkswagen and GM, two of their major rivals, are well established in China. In their position, I wouldn't want to be. Even Chinese citizens are starting to question their Chinese citizenship. Jack Ma, the former CEO and founder of Alibaba, recently relinquished control of Ant Group in order to regain his independence. Jack Ma has recently begun traveling through Europe rather than being confined to China. Jack Ma is not the only one though. A reported 10,000 affluent Chinese citizens with a combined net worth of $48 billion intend to leave China this year. This indicates that China is nearly at the same level as Russia in terms of losing their wealthiest citizens. Despite the enormous institutional obstacles to leaving China, this movement is taking place. With the economy deteriorating, the real estate market is reaching new lows. Recall Evergrande, the most indebted real estate developer in the world? The deadline for Evergrande's $300 billion debt restructuring plan was missed. Evergrande had months to prepare, but according to sources close to the bondholders, the business hadn't even begun. Simply put, Evergrande is unable to restructure its debt. In addition to having an excessive number of vacant homes, China's population is also rapidly declining. China's implementation of limits on the maximum number of children that individuals could have been the cause of this population drop. The one-child policy, which restricted Chinese families to having just one child each, went into effect in 1979. The two-child policy was implemented in 2016 because the government discovered that their population would drastically decline. The one-child policy continues to plague people, and as a result, China is likely to experience a significant reduction in its population. China is currently facing a number of significant problems, but if the government plays its cards right, they may find long-term solutions for them. However, the government is shifting backward toward a more socialist structure, which historically has been bad for economic growth. So it doesn't seem like that will be the case. At the moment, there is no way to preserve the Chinese economy. The Chinese economy is set to experience one of the biggest collapses ever. Thanks for coming all the way to the end of the video. We hope you found today's video helpful and informative. Please subscribe to our channel for more financial news, tips, and strategies. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.